Parashat VAYERA. One of the most problematic incidents of the entire Torah. How can God have asked Abraham to sacrifice his innocent son Isaac? The rabbis in the Talmud are very much concerned with this. And in the tractate Ta'anit, page 4, the rabbis cite a verse from the prophet Jeremiah, which makes it clear that it was never the divine intention for Abraham to sacrifice his son. That was not what God meant. As I said, the Talmud quotes the prophet Jeremiah speaking in God's name to those who worship idols. Lo tziviti, lo amarti, lo ala al dati. I never commanded it, I never said it, it never came upon my mind to ask for it. I never commanded it. God says, I never commanded Mesha, the king of Moab, to sacrifice his son to me. I never said it. God says, I never told Jephthah, Yiftach, to sacrifice his daughter to me. It never came upon my mind to even think it. I never told Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. So what did God ask Abraham to do? Kachno et bincha et yechidecha asher ahavta, take your son, the only one whom you love, v'ha'aleyu sham la'olah, bring him up for a whole burnt offering. Not for a whole burnt offering, but bring him up for a dedication. Olah literally means a bringing up, an elevation, a dedication. And Olah is a woman who comes up to Israel to live in Israel. The Hebrew word olah need not in any way mean a sacrificial offering. So God, in effect, according to the passage in the Talmud, is saying, Abraham mistook my intention. I didn't want him to sacrifice his son. And Rashi says the same thing. Rashi says, Lo amarti shechateu. I didn't say slaughter Isaac. I said bring him up, dedicate him. Take him up to the mountain, pray with him, study Torah with him, and then take him down. I never meant sacrifice. I never meant slaughter. I meant dedicate. Now, what would cause Abraham to interpret the words the way in which he interpreted them? And Rav Yosef ibn Kaspi says very brilliantly, Abraham lived 4,000 years ago, when the idolaters were all sacrificing their children to Molech. It's a horrible thing. It's what extremist Islam is doing with the Shahidim, with the suicide bombers. It's horrific. And as a matter of fact, Rav Yosef ibn Kaspi says, one cannot blame Abraham for thinking that that's what God meant, because after all, that was what was being done 4,000 years ago by idolaters, and unfortunately it's what's being done today as well. So Abraham took it to mean sacrifice, slaughter. But that was not God's intention. Indeed, this entire passage, according to Rav Yosef ibn Kaspi, comes in order to teach Abraham that that is not what God wants. And that was the second command. Don't cast a hand against the child. I don't want human sacrifice. But if that's the case, why does God use a nebulous statement? Why does he utilize, as it were, the word olah, which could so easily be mistaken for a human sacrifice? Perhaps in order to teach the ultimate lesson. That's not what I want you to do. Or perhaps because that's the tremendous complexity of the Bible. Because the Bible that was written 4,000 years ago speaks for all eternity. Because there would be many situations in Jewish history when fathers would be asked to bring their children to real sacrifice. The Order de Fez, the Spanish Inquisition, etc., etc., etc. So God couched his language in such a way that Abraham would also serve as a shining example to all the parents who would have to sacrifice their children, and to a certain extent to every parent who lives in Israel and takes his son to the army, to the IDF. My wife and I were Abraham and Sarah. And our sons went to the army, and then our grandsons went to the army. So there's a hidden message as well in the nebulous language. But God's true intention was always that Isaac not be physically slaughtered or sacrificed. Shabbat Shalom.